This is the Court Leader's Advantage, a podcast series for court professionals and by court professionals. Brought to you by thecourtleader.net and in cooperation with NACM, the National Association for Court Management. The 2026 NACM Midyear Conference brought together court professionals from across the country. They came together to share best practices, confront common challenges, and explore new ideas. The theme of the Midyear Conference, Preserving the Rule of Law and Judicial Independence, connects to an important national milestone. In 2026, our nation celebrates its 250th anniversary. I'm Pete Kiefer, and welcome to the Court Leader's Advantage podcast series. This month, we ask court professionals a simple question. What was your biggest takeaway from the 2026 NACM Midyear Conference? We examine what court professionals can do to protect the rule of law and judicial independence at a time of unprecedented challenge. These challenges raise fundamental questions about whether our justice system can live up to its ideals. They also come at a time when public trust in our institutions is already under enormous strain. Whether you're an experienced administrator or just beginning your career, this episode highlights for you the ideas that mattered most at the 2026 NACM Midyear Conference. It also sharpens our focus on what matters most to court professionals as we all move into the future. Here to moderate today's discussion is Tina Madison, retired Deputy Court Administrator for the Pima County Consolidated Justice Courts in Tucson, Arizona, and current lecturer at the Institute for Court Management. On today's panel are Sean O'Sullivan, Chief of Community Relations at the Administrative Office of the Courts in Wilmington, Delaware; Amanda Hammer, Court Executive Officer for the 10th Judicial District in Tucumcari, New Mexico; and Michael Cuccaro, Executive Director of the Council of Judges in El Paso, Texas. Thank you all for joining today's podcast. So let's join Tina and our panel as they discuss the biggest takeaways from NACM's 2026 Midyear Conference.
Thank you all for joining me. I'm really excited about this podcast to talk about the NACM conference. So a couple questions. What idea or conversation did you have at the conference that sharpened your thinking about court administration? Amanda?
I think the rule of law one was the one that really touched me, getting out there with our communities and engaging them in the civics education and letting them know what the courts do. It's one of those things where we deal with this on a daily basis, and most of the time they're only here because they have something that they have to get done or they've been called for jury duty, and it's not exactly their most exciting day in the courts.
Great point. Mike?
Well, I concur. I think the theme of the conference really attracted a lot of people and a lot of interest. I brought 4 judges along with us to share in the conference, and their reaction was very favorable. One judge said, "I'd rather come to this than come to a judges training." So, but the rule of law resonated, and my takeaway was that I really need to engage all the court staff in a conversation about rule of law and procedural fairness so that we as a system can do our best job promoting the rule of law.
That's wonderful. I really appreciate every time I hear the word procedural fairness or procedural justice. Makes me happy. So I love that it was sprinkled throughout the conference.
It was great to hear Amanda talking about that. Obviously, I'm trying to get the word out about our courts all the time and letting our communities know, what we do every day, all the time. And the opening plenary was particularly satisfying to see all the different viewpoints and how in this age of division, there was still that agreement on the core principles that I think we all care about, which is judicial independence, the importance of the rule of law, that even across partisan lines, that is still something that unites us.
Okay, so many attendees say that the hallway conversations are as valuable as some of the sessions. Is there anything that NACM as an organization can do to kind of enhance that experience?
So it's having set up some of my own conferences for CCPIO. I thought NACM did a particularly good job. I think the networking break, as it was left on there, really left a lot of room between the sessions so that you could connect with people. So that as one of the presentations was ending, you were able to sort of grab somebody on the way out, or maybe continue a conversation with one of your seatmates about whatever the topic was. And so I felt that was very helpful, and it did help foster the cross-court communication I think that a conference like this is really valuable for.
Amanda.
I know I had the opportunity to visit with judges as well as the frontline staff during the networking. And it's great to see all of those perspectives being shared about the breakout sessions that we were just in.
So what's one practical change you think you can make in your court or take back to your court as a result of what you learned at the conference?
One of the interesting things, a session I sat through, designing for legitimacy, effective court communications, and it was about the value and importance of launching a text reminder system and how that can sort of increase appearance rates for folks. And I found it, wow, this is good. They were talking about all this. And back at my court here in Delaware, I'm part of our legislative team where I look at incoming legislation. And it just so happens the day after I got back, one of the pieces of incoming legislation was a resolution from our Senate asking our judiciary to investigate the possibility of having text reminders sent to people to increase appearance rates. And boy, was I prepared to share with my team. I had the PowerPoint presentation, I had what the advice was offered, and so that was a really happy coincidence, and one that I was in fact planning on bringing up with folks in my court, but here it was. The world was ahead of me.
That's pretty timely, right?
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, so we're just to spin off of that one for court notifications. We are working on a fairly robust system to replace all of our haphazard systems that we use to do that. But that session was really helpful in helping me understand how to message that and what the benefit's going to be to the community. So it was really helpful. Isabel Shapiro, started it out with a lot of energy. She's from the Pew Center. But I want to try and match that energy from that presentation when we debut it in El Paso County.
So I want to bring up one more thing that New Mexico is also doing, and we use a text and email system for our jurors, and it tells them when to report. And I think that has made a huge difference with our jurors not having to call in once a week to find out, do I have to show up? Do I have to show up? And even when the parties settle the day before, we can let them know and they don't have to come to the courthouse still and miss work. So as you're working on that, Sean, I recommend pushing the idea for even reaching out to your jurors that way as well.
I was definitely going to reach out to jury services. I had the same thought that, wow, we can extend it and use it with them too.
Yes.
See, I love it. We're still sharing ideas, even after the conference, right?
Absolutely.
Amanda, you talked about the security program, or the session was something that really stuck with you, that you thought it was a really good one. Was there any other session that stuck out to you? And you also mentioned the rule of law one. Anything else?
The other one for me is strategic planning. I think from a court perspective, all the way to a unified system like we have in New Mexico, it's one of those things in my court, we're particularly going to be working on succession planning. And I know there's other courts in New Mexico, and we have a court executive officers council, and we've kind of got a new SOP started basically for sharing all of that knowledge as we have people in key positions that are retiring, so that we don't lose that institutional knowledge that is so important to keep going.
Sean.
Well, in addition to the opening plenary, just to brag a little bit on one of my colleagues in CCPIO, I was really impressed with the civic outreach that some of my colleagues did, and the innovative efforts they had with their court on wheels and bringing in legislative interns. I thought that was a great idea to sort of help foster some, cross-governmental amicus between, the courts and the legislature by offering up a program in the courts for their legislative interns. Those type of things can also be really great seeds for the future because if the interns understand the courts, then as they move forward in their careers with the legislature, either as staffers or perhaps coming back as elected officials, they will then have that knowledge with them. And so I thought that was particularly effective. I enjoyed seeing the logistics of it and the outcome.
After attending this conference, what do you see as the two most important issues facing courts and the profession of court administration moving forward? Amanda?
I think workforce management is a huge one, and there was so much interest in those sessions as well. Personally, I want to see helping our workforce make it a career and not just a job. This is such a vital role in our small communities that it needs to be a focus for everyone.
I love that. Yes, the workforce management session was very well attended. And it is something that we're all experiencing throughout courts, throughout the nation.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, well, was one of my answers is workforce management, succession planning, but really across the country, I think we're seeing just a lack of people with the skills we need. Court reporters, everybody knows that we're desperate for court reporters across the country. Certified court interpreters, also very difficult. And in El Paso, we're actually working with the local university, UTEP, and with our state AOC, just called the OCA, to try and develop our town as an incubator for interpreters, because we know we need them, but we also know the country needs them. And as a border town, we think we're uniquely suited to fostering the growth of that profession. But that's even finding lawyers now is difficult. So that's going to be a critical thing for the courts writ large, in our community. The other thing I think that was really important was, there has been a lot of talk about the National Centers reorganization, and I was really pleased that Jesse and Beth came and presented what that is. I think it calmed people a little bit, understanding of really what their strategic plan is about, because we depend on them so much. So I was really pleased that they did that.
All right, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball and ask the question. So you often hear people say, if I only knew then what I know now, I would have done this thing differently. Tell me what one thing you would have done if somebody had told you earlier in your career. This is for our early career professionals that are listening in. So, Mike.
I would have invested more time working on my skills with regards to human resources. Because when I was younger, who knew we would see these generational changes and things like COVID that really requires you to react differently as a court leader and a manager. Again, that's probably my biggest takeaway is I would have invested more time in that.
Amanda.
I agree with what Mike said, but I would also really encourage them to get involved. Join a NACM committee. I've been a part of the membership committee now for about 4 years, and it helps with the networking when you get to these conferences. And that is where you learn so much about what other people are doing, and you just build off of it, just like Sean said. It's invaluable to get that knowledge at these conferences.
I've been around 30 years and I still get to check in with my mentors at NACM. So.
Yay, a plug for the NACM mentorship program. I too received my mentor from NACM, and I struck gold because I got Marcus Reichensmeyer. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. Sean.
So one of the things I not to be a shameless plug, but I think to get involved in more of these organizations earlier in my career. I was, pretty early on with CCPIO, but had I also been able to join up with NACM, I think that, helped broaden my perspective and get a better understanding of, not only courts across the country, but in my own court, as I heard from other court systems and the challenges they faced. It just really gives you a great perspective. If for no other reason than you get like an early warning system about certain things that maybe New Mexico or Arizona is facing will eventually turn up here and vice versa. So I found that to be invaluable. And if I had to, travel back in time, I probably would like whisper that to myself as, hey, there's more than this. There's these other groups that'll also help out.
Mike, maybe you want to talk about how might a stronger collaboration across court organizations improve our practice and also ultimately that trust?
Well, I do think collaboration is critical because what people want from their court system is consistency, fairness, but they also want to know that they're not being treated differently. They want to know that the people that they're talking to know the process, know the next steps, and when you have a breakdown between stakeholders, quite frankly, it's embarrassing and it impedes justice, but it also damages a reputation. That's at the local level. I do know that National Center and other organizations are talking about how to collaborate at the national level, which I think is a really good thing to maximize the resources that organizations like NACM, the National Center, CCPIO, who I think is great, can provide to us who, what you say, the cliche is we're in the trenches, right? We are trying to live this every day. Just want to mention also that it was great to meet our partners in New Mexico during the conference. So I can see New Mexico every day from my office and learning more about their courts, because oftentimes we have people who, they have trouble in New Mexico, they have trouble in Texas. And so getting to meet people there, learn more about their processes and contrast them with our own has been, that was really a successful part of the conference for me.
I love that. I took the Sandia tram up to the top of the mountain and I said, I can see my house in Arizona from here. So we did the same. We were on the other side, right? So I think that having everybody there at the conference and seeing that, where can we collaborate? Where can we share ideas? And what are you guys doing is one of the biggest takeaways whenever I attend. It's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great strength of these conferences that we can all compare notes and not have to reinvent the wheel if one of our neighbors has already made it several times over.
Yes.
All right, one final question for you all. If you could send one message to people that didn't attend this conference, to the leaders that didn't attend this conference, what would it be?
You're missing out. You get great information, great intelligence. It's also very helpful to connect with your counterparts in other states. And it's even though it's a commitment of time and funding, I think it pays itself back to sort of keep the pulse of what's going on in other court systems and give you a better perspective on your own.
Amanda.
I think that these conferences are so beneficial for everyone in the judiciary, from the judges to court administration, security officers, and the clerks. We deal with these day-to-day challenges every single day, and we have to educate our people to know how to help the public through the court processes. Because like I said before, this isn't something they deal with on a daily basis. And it doesn't even if they don't like the outcome, it doesn't have to be a negative experience. And we're here. Let's help them.
That's awesome. Mike.
And Amanda's takeaway is my takeaway. I think that at least in Texas, judges have an ethical obligation to be involved in judicial administration. And if they don't understand court management principles, it becomes a challenge for them. And I think that conferences like this provide them a foundation that they can build upon and it also allows them to work more closely with their court managers, court administrators, towards a common purpose.
Sean, you brought up the point about funding, and that sometimes it is difficult to get people here on courts budgets. So we do have scholarships. I want to put that plug in. So if people go out to our website, we will announce when those scholarships are, and you can apply to get one, to either get a membership or to get a scholarship to come to the conference. So that's something our organization does offer. And so I wanted to throw that little plug out there as well. Well, that's all we have. I really appreciate, again, you guys attending and sharing your insights from the NACM Midyear Conference. And, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
I want to sincerely thank Tina, Sean, Amanda, and Michael for recalling their biggest takeaways from the 2026 Midyear Conference. When we share ideas and experiences at these conferences, we strengthen not only ourselves, but we strengthen the entire justice system. And to you dedicated court professionals joining us today, your commitment to fairness and professionalism keeps public trust in our courts strong and helps our communities flourish. Thank you for your dedication to the work you do every day. Join us again on Tuesday, May 19th for another episode of the Court Leaders Advantage podcast series as we take on the issues shaping our courts. I'm Pete Kiefer, and thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us today. The Court Leaders Advantage is a regular podcast series on courts and court administration. Today's episode will be available on our website, on the Court Leader website, on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, LinkedIn, and on Instagram. Did you enjoy this episode? Please share the podcast link on your social media pages. Every share helps spread the word about the vital work court administrators do to strengthen justice in our communities. Become part of the conversation. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, email us. Our address is CLApodcast, that's all one word, @nacmnet.org. Did you hear an interesting comment by one of the panelists that you would like to review, but you don't want to search the entire episode to find it? The additional resources section of the webpage has a complete transcript of today's episode with the time markers for when each question was asked. Find the discussion question on the transcript, and next to it is the time that question was asked. You can either review the comments on the transcript or listen to the panelist's comment on the audio or video recordings. Remember, if you don't have time to watch an episode, you can always listen to the audio version. Listen in your car or on the bus on your way to or from work. You never have to miss an episode. I'm Pete Kiefer, and on behalf of our guests, the Court Leaders website, and the National Association for Court Management, thank you, and have a great day. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the host and the individual presenters. They do not necessarily represent the position of the National Association for Court Management.